Hello. Hello, hello.
If the bus does, you're gonna have to move. See?
See, it wouldn't affect us, because we're 8 and 9. No, you're not 9.
No, 7.
Yeah, we would get to sit next to me.
See, and that would cause.
Good morning, everyone.
Things got to be redone.
We'll call the April 5th, 2011 meeting of the Jackson City Council to order and ask Councilman David Cisco to lead us in our invocation and pledge. If you would, please rise.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the many blessings that you give us, especially the blessing of life that you give us each day. Father, we thank you for the freedoms that we have. Please protect the men and women that are protecting us here in our country and in other lands. Keep them safe and comfort them, dear Father. Father, we ask that you be with the mayor and this council today. Give us wisdom to make the decisions that we're making for the people of our city. Help us do the right thing, dear Father. These things we ask in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nita, I think you can show all council present with the exception of, we have one that's in a green conference out at the Ag Center, Councilman Brooks, and he should be here a little bit later. Council received a copy of the minutes of the last meeting on March 1st, 2011 meeting. If there are no changes or alterations there, we'll go ahead and accept those minutes as approved. Before I get to proclamations, let me ask the council to strike item 5, if you would, from the agenda. I think that's a recommendation from the committee, isn't it?
Yes.
Councilman Watts, okay. Also, under item 8, we have one other addition as far as addressing the council, and that's Ms. Trice, who will follow Baker. We have a number of proclamations this morning, so I'll go down and get those done. Okay, our first proclamation is Equal Pay Day. We have Monique Merriweather here and members of the Jackson Business Professional Women's Organization. Bates is here. Y'all come on up, girls, and I'll read this and make it a part of the proceedings of this meeting. It's a proclamation whereas 40 years after the passage of the Equal Pay Act and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, women and people of color continue to suffer the consequences of inequitable pay differentials. And whereas according to statistics released in 2009 by the U.S. Census Bureau, year-round full-time working women in 2009 earned only 78% of the earnings of year-round full-time working men, indicating little change or progress in pay equity. Whereas according to a September 2002 report released by the General Accounting Office, the investigative arm of Congress, women managers in 7 of 10 industries surveyed actually lost ground in closing the wage pay between 1995 and 2000. And according to analysis of data in over 300 classifications provided by the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics in 2001, women earn less in every occupational classification for which enough data is available, including occupations dominated by women. Example, cashiers, retail sales, registered nurses, and teachers. And whereas higher education is not free from wage discrimination, according to U.S. Department of Education analysis, reporting that after controlling for rank, age, credentials, field of study, and other factors, full-time female faculty members earn nearly 9% less than their male counterparts. And whereas over a working lifetime, this wage disparity cost the American woman and her family an estimated $523,000 in lost wages, impacting Social Security benefits and pensions. And whereas fair pay equity policies can be implemented simply and without undue cost or hardship in both the public and private sectors, and whereas fair pay strengthens the security of families today and eases future retirement costs while enhancing the American economy. And whereas Tuesday, April the 12th, symbolizes the time of the next year in which the wages paid to American women catch up to the wages paid to men for the previous year. So it's my honor to present this proclamation on behalf of the council and the people of Jackson, Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. With more women in the workforce and acting as their families' breadwinners, it is more important than ever in this economic climate that we are mindful of the wage gap and adequately address it through policy, business practice, and as women, our own negotiation efforts. We hope that the members of the council will be reminded and mindful of the wage gap by the materials passed out by Vice President Monique and past President Mary Jo Middlebrooks. Thank you.
Thank you all. Next proclamation is Jumpstart Jackson. We have Tony Black, Executive Director of Jackson Recreation Parks Department, Annette Wilson, Jackson Madison County School System Coordinated School Health Director, and Sandy McDermott, Superintendent of Recreation. If you three would come up and accept this proclamation, if you would. Yes, the proclamation, whereas childhood and youth inactivity, obesity, and poor diet have become major preventable health issues throughout the United States. And whereas according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, over 30% of children and adolescents ages 6 to 19 are considered overweight. And whereas poor diet and lack of physical activity led to approximately 400,000 deaths in 2000, which was a 33% increase in 10 years. And whereas the state of Tennessee ranks as one of the highest states in incidence of childhood obesity, and whereas the city of Jackson, county of Madison, and the Jackson-Madison County School System have partnered to improve physical fitness, diet, health, and wellness in our community through Jumpstart Jackson initiative. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Gist, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2011 as Jumpstart Jackson Community Wellness Month. So it's my honor to present this to you, and thank you for what you do. Jumpstart Jackson has received notoriety nationwide as far as our initiatives here, and we thank you all for what you all continue to do. Annette?
Thank you, Mayor Guest and council members, and I encourage you to please join us for our 4th annual Jumpstart Jackson Community Wellness Walk, and it is a community effort. We need everyone to take part in trying to make Jackson a healthier place to live. Unfortunately, we just received our Tennessee rankings last week, and Madison County fell from number 40 to 44. So that was not in the direction we wanted to move. So I encourage you to come out on April 30th. This is not just for children and families and members of the school system. This is for our entire community. Come out April 30th. We will be meeting at the Civic Center and walking a 5K. It's a walk at your own pace. It is not a competitive walk. Come out and join us. We have great sponsors. We will be giving away T-shirts to the first attendees. It's a great time to come out and be with the community, and I encourage all of our councilmen to come out and join us. We would love to have each and every one of you, and I do thank the city for working with the school system as they have. we have really made some great strides in the awareness, and hopefully with that awareness, we will continue to improve the health of Jackson. Thank you.
Next proclamation is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we have Margaret Cole here, who is here each year to accept this proclamation on behalf of RAP. Y'all stand by just a second. What'd y'all do now? He reminded me that I did not have my Okay, this is a proclamation whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member of Jackson, Tennessee. And whereas sexual assault and sexual harassment impart our community as seen by statistics indicating that 1 in 5 women will have experienced sexual assault by the time they complete college. Whereas we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to prevent sexual assault and how to support survivors. Whereas staff and volunteers of RAP program encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small. And whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing sexual violence in Jackson, Tennessee through preventive education, increased awareness, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. Whereas the City of Jackson strongly supports the efforts of national, state, and local partners and of every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors connect with services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Guest, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim April 2011 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and urge all citizens to join RAPs and all support service programs on behalf that all community members must be part of the solution to end sexual violence. Margaret, thank you for your passion for what you do.
Thank you, Mayor Gist and Mayor Harris, the council. We appreciate your support, and you do have teal ribbons that a couple of you have on. So the rest of you need to reach for those now and put those on. Those do signify Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's just a way to address the fact that sexual violence is happening here in our city, in West Tennessee, and across the nation. It's not something we want to talk about a lot because it is such a private, violent crime, but it is a crime, and we want people to address that and to recognize that. And we thank you for taking time out to do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have one other proclamation, this for Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And I think we have several people here to accept this proclamation. I'll just call on members with the Jackson Central Dispatch, Police, and Fire to come up and join us. Madison County Fire Dispatch also to come up. Jackson MedLinks, EMS, to come up and join us. Madison County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff and Jennifer Brandon, and Jackson, Tennessee Highway Patrol, Sergeant Max Milan. So y'all come on up, and we have 5 of these proclamations, which I'm not going to read all 5 of them because they all say the same thing, but I will give each of you all one to take back to your various agencies where you can present it to them and display it. It's a proclamation, whereas every day 911 public safety telecommunicators from the City of Jackson Police Department, City of Jackson Fire Department, Madison County Sheriff's Office, Madison County Fire Department, Jackson MedLinks, and Tennessee Highway Patrol answer requests for emergency aid from the public with professionalism and compassion. And whereas the efforts of these unseen first responders to answer calls for help gather essential information and assure that appropriate assistance is provided after saved innumerable lives. And whereas the work of these 911 public safety telecommunicators is invaluable and deserves public recognition and appreciation. Whereas in order to recognize the high-quality communication services provided by our 911 public safety telecommunicators, the United States Congress designated the second full week in April as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And whereas Jackson and Madison County hereby honor and commend the 911 public safety telecommunicators for their professionalism, commitment, compassion, and steadfast pursuit of their goal of protecting life and property. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Guest, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the week of April 10th through the 16th, 2011 as Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Jackson and Madison County, and urge all citizens to honor these men and women for their diligence and professionalism in keeping our community safe. So thank you all very much for your passion and what you do.
Thank you. Just very brief. Thank you, Mayor Giss and Mayor Harris for this recognition. As many of you know, I have a deep affection for dispatchers. My law enforcement career began some 38 years ago as the midnight shift dispatcher with Humboldt Police Department, so it's been rewarding to me.
Give it about a big Thank you all.
Was ours not ready for child abuse?
Eric, don't run off with those proclamations. See if there's one in there for child.
Really, she dressed up.
Gave him a child abuse proclamation.
Somebody's got my proclamation.
There we go.
You cannot interrupt the fire chief. Okay, good, thank you. I thought there was one more. Child Abuse Prevention Month. Sherry, come on out.
Okay.
Madison County Director of Services. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You brought quite a crew this morning. Thank you all for being here. Okay, this is a proclamation. Whereas child abuse neglect is a serious and growing problem that shakes the foundation of nearly 4 million of our nation's children annually. And whereas this problem, which has reached epidemic proportions in all regions of our nation, respects no racial, religious, socioeconomic, or geographic boundaries, and can prevent children from building a positive and faithful future. Whereas there is a great need to develop a plan for child abuse prevention to alleviate this problem. And whereas the Exchange Club, Carl Perkins Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse, through its parent teaching, educational programs, and community service activities, is helping create an atmosphere of peace, love, and happy children by making significant progress in breaking the cycle of abuse and improving the quality of life for our community's children and families. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Guest, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2011 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month and urge all citizens to use this time to better understand, recognize, and respond to this grievous problem as the center helps our families to achieve peace, love, and happy children. Jerry, it's an honor for me to present this to you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. 1 in 5 children will be sexually solicited through the internet. 4 children a day in the United States die as a result of child abuse. We're seeing an overwhelming number of drug-exposed children due to our increasing meth problems. We're seeing physical abuse, we're seeing sexual abuse, and it is an overwhelming problem. There are families in crisis, and that's why we want to recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. We work daily throughout the year, and you are a part of that, and we thank you very much. And so we made the theme this year, Peace, Love, and Happy Children, because that's what every child deserves. Thank you.
Okay, this is time that we'll indicate the invitation for public comment. If you would like to make a comment under any item under new business, now would be a good time to let us know, and I'll try to call on you during that time. We have a couple of special guests with us this morning. We did have Commissioner Tippett, Madison County Commission. Commissioner, you here? Hold your hand up. Good to have you here. Also, Director of Schools, Dr. Zambito is here. And I hope I didn't miss anyone that's here. Good to have you here. Item 7 is first readings. We have none. Item 8 is second readings. We have none. Item 9 is new business, consideration of a resolution agreeing to deed 5 acres more or less located south of Highway 70 bypass between Phillips and Cartmore Street to Connections Preparatory School to be used for establishment of a charter school. And Councilman Brooks requested it be up to council to shift this item. You're here. Good. Good to see you come in, Councilman. Okay, you have the resolution. Any questions or any comments? Anyone here from the organization to address the council? Sure, come on up if you'd like. If you'd come up and introduce yourself and who you're with.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just have a seat there if you'd like.
This having been my very first time at a city council meeting, I don't know proper protocol, but I would like to say good morning to all who are here. And we appreciate you giving us this opportunity to come. My name is Manola Patterson. I serve as the educational consultant for the Connections Preparatory School.
I'm Bishop Nathaniel Bond. I serve as the vice chair. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to meet with you. Our efforts are to serve the underserved of this community. We believe that education is at the very core of the future of this community. And I believe in the 21st century, with the challenges that are faced before us, we have the responsibility of doing everything within our power to try to elevate educational standards in our community and to put forth a real genuine effort that no child is left behind. So we do want you to consider what's before you. Hopefully you will consider in our favor. I think there has been an amendment to it that we are willing to abide by some requests that were made in our effort to move forward with this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Bishop Bond. Any questions of Patterson or Bishop Bond from the council? Resolution indicates that it would be, if approved, a letter of intent. The property, once all approvals are gained by the organization, to establish a charter school.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a statement if I could, if it's appropriate now. And this is to my fellow council members. I've sponsored an alternative resolution to the one before the council in January that I made a motion to table. I have stated publicly that I'm neither for nor against charter schools. Moreover, this resolution is neither an indictment on the present public school system nor an endorsement of charter schools in general or Connections Preparatory School most specifically. If that were my interest, I would have run for the school board. However, as the only city councilman with sections of both community redevelopment projects in his district, this resolution is simply an effort in support of economic development and jobs in East Jackson. The land which is located in East Jackson Community Redevelopment District 2 is also in a tax increment financing district, or TIF district. I propose that Connections Preparatory School make an annual payment in lieu of taxes, or a pilot, based on the assessed land value. Like any other residential, commercial, or industrial tenant, because of its location in a TIF district, the taxes or payments would go towards infrastructure and improvements in the East Jackson community. Transfer of the land is contingent upon approval of the Community Redevelopment Agency and the State Department of Education. I urge my colleagues to seize this opportunity to support growth, economic development, and jobs in East Jackson by supporting this resolution. Thank you. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, motion has been made to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion from council?
I do have go ahead. I'm sorry.
I recognize Councilman Wallace. He had his hand up first.
In the process of purchasing the land, y'all intended to build a school on the land?
Yes.
What approximately would be the cost of building that school?
Those figures are in our documents, and I did not bring the documents with me.
Mr. Chairman.
I believe Mr. Taylor has given those figures to you in the past.
Okay, recognize Councilman Udacker next.
As far as the cost, I don't think he has given us those costs,
Yes,
but
I think he has.
that's, I'm trying to avoid that discussion, so let's go back to a couple of questions. One of the things is, we talk about in lieu of payment, we talk about payment, and we talk about taxes, and in regards to the establishment, maybe I'm not quite understanding what they mean by the payment in lieu of taxes. Ernest, could you possibly answer that question for me? Thank you.
Could you repeat it? I'm sorry.
What exactly do we mean by payment in lieu of taxes?
Well, just exactly that. As a school, they would be non-taxed, and because of that, we're asking that they make some type of payment, which again would go toward the infrastructure in East Jackson.
I guess my question is, it has to do with the fact that if we're transferring this property to this particular corporation, is that
It
kind
is
of the best
corporation, yes.
description of that corporation has yet to build a school? So why would, we're looking forward, I know that's exactly what we're doing, but actually we're just transferring property to a corporation.
Well, actually, from my understanding, the property would be transferred to the Community Redevelopment Agency
And then transferred.
and then transferred.
So basically what,
That's why they're before us.
Okay.
Because the city owns the property.
Right.
And we have to transfer it to the CRA before
So,
we,
so we're not transferring
before we
this
can do any
to,
project.
to this agency, we're transferring it to CRA, is that
First.
your? Right, okay, is that your
That's my understanding.
impression? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Councilman.
Councilman Brooks and the rest of the council, with respect to anything else being built on that property, we need to offer an amendment that nothing else, if they want to build, if they can't get it off the ground and want to build something else, that it reverts back to the city.
Is that, Attorney, is that made clear in the resolution that we're talking about a letter of intent and that property will be transferred once all approvals are gained and after?
I think what I understood
Attorney, I understand that, but we need some type of clause stating that if it's not a school built, they can't build anything else. It comes back to the city.
I think I understand what the councilman is saying. In my resolution, it's contingent upon those approvals by the two different bodies, but you're saying, irrespective of that, if it doesn't happen, then it reverts back to the city.
Correct.
But I almost would agree with my fellow attorney that we wouldn't have transferred if those things don't occur. If those contingencies aren't met, it would never be transferred.
Right. What I think is easy to do is to write up what this body decides it wants, instead of me trying to write or review in advance before the decision is made. Predict what the decision is.
That would be contained in the letter of intent.
Right, if that wants to be that, we've done it before, we can do it again, to have that condition that is for this purpose, and if that purpose is not met, come back.
Do we need to offer up an amendment, or is that okay? Mayor?
You're feel free to make an informed amendment motion to amend, I suppose, the resolution to include the letter of intent to include that statement in it.
Attorney, do we need it?
I'll pull it up to look at.
It's a two-part process. One is I need to understand what the group wants, and then write it to make sure that what I've written is correct. What I hear being said is that if this passes, that it would be passed simply as a commitment to to transfer the property to this group. And then what I hear you saying is, in addition to that, that if it's not used for the purpose of a charter school, then it reverts back to the city.
Correct.
Okay. I can write that. I don't think it's in here right now. Like that.
Well, we are, Mr. Mayor, I move that the land that we're offering up to the connections be used solely for the intent of building a charter school. If not, it reverts back to the city.
Okay. Council understand that amendment. Is there a second to it? And then I'll recognize Stan.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Questions, Stan?
Just one point of clarity. This was land that was a part of the redevelopment land that was purchased that would transfer to the CRA at some point when we called it up. So I just want to be clear. If and when the approvals, if they're all made, and then so that initiates the transfer process, you stated this morning that it would be transferred from the CRA to the school. That would be assuming that the city has already transferred it to the CRA. Now, if you put a reversion clause in there, I assume if the CRA is going to initiate the deeding and it doesn't get used for a school, that it would revert back to the CRA to use for redevelopment purposes, not come back to the city. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
what I think.
believe that's
And I'm trying to figure out that
I
particular process
understand
too.
what you're saying, but we want to make it noted that CRA is part of the city.
Okay, it
It's
is.
not separate.
It is, but in terms of
Separate agency.
ownership and transfers,
Yeah.
it's a different
We want to
entity.
note that it would have to come back before this board.
It's a different, I'm just trying to be
Yeah,
clear
but
on the
regardless
process.
if it goes to the CRA or not, it has to come back to this board.
Because the CRA will more than likely at that time also possess the balance 4 acres that is
Right.
part of this larger tract. So if it failed to become a school, then either it will not be deeded at all, or if
Right.
it is deeded and then it fails to become a school, then it would revert back to the CRA with the balance of the rest of the property. I assume that's what you intend, but I just want to make,
I'm in agreement with what you're saying,
Okay.
but we kind of, CRA is just an entity of the city.
it is.
One other question on this reversion or clause. Just trying to think through the process. If this school gets going, they're probably going to need to borrow some money to build the school, and they're going to need to pledge the property to secure the loan, and the bank is going to want to make sure that if something goes wrong, they can protect their collateral. Would this be considered fulfillment of the conditions that if a school is built upon the property, then the reverter clause has been satisfied? In other words, if you build the building and 5 years later it comes back to the city, the bank
Yes.
can't foreclose, which means they
Right.
can't
Yes.
lend, which means it's economically unviable, I think.
You're correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. We have a, okay, what, any other?
Yeah,
Sure.
we have a couple questions.
In regards to the resolution, it states that it is contingent upon review and approval of the CRA and the Tennessee Department of Education. Why are we bypassing our local school board in this decision? It seems that it would affect them greatly.
Well, I mean, it automatically goes to the school board for their approval. From what I understand, they are in favor of that, so that's the reason.
So we want to jump over their head.
The next level of approval, then it would go to the State Department of Education.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak to that?
Go ahead, Ms. Bass. Yeah.
That's not the intention. We plan to follow all of the rules and regulations. The rules state, the law states that we have to submit it to the County Board of Education, and based on their recommendation is where we will go from there.
Have you all had any relationship or talks
We
with?
have had conversations and visits with Ms. Zambito, Dr. Zambito. We've talked with school board members, and they are aware of this process.
Are they in favor of the process?
I have not heard that commitment.
I ask a question of my fellow council members. Have any of you all spoken with school board members
Yes,
and their response?
those who I've spoken with are in favor of it.
None are opposed.
The feeling that I got was that they were not as a body, so I've not polled each one, but that's the temperature that I got.
But it's my understanding that Tennessee Department of Education can basically pull rank and approve it, correct?
Well, not necessarily approve rank. If our school board were to deny it, then it would go to the State Department of Education, and that's state law
It's a federal law.
as well.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I got one other question.
Sure.
If the school does get built, and then 3 years down the road, it fails and gets the charter pulled, or whatever that process is, then will that land revert back to the city then? Or what happens to the property, I guess, is my question, if that was to happen? Does that go back to the school department then?
I guess the question would be, does the school system then own the property, or does it revert back to the corporation? Yes, Louis.
I don't know the answer to that because y'all haven't decided.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, what I do is write up your decisions, not make them. So what I heard in my last discussion was that the condition of using the land for a charter school purpose was fulfilled by the building of the school itself. Because in my mind, I'm thinking there's gonna have to be a loan to finance the construction and a mortgage, and then if the school doesn't succeed, the bank will take the property and then put it back into commerce, either purposed as a public school or as a private school or as something. That's what I'm thinking, but that's just my,
That's kind of what I'm.
that's what
thinking,
I'm
too.
seeing, but that's your decision.
You would agree there's a lot of maybes, but in different scenarios,
Well,
could happen.
Yeah, well.
Scenarios is what I'm thinking of.
And to address Councilman Rahm's concern, what I would be wanting to do is to make the approval contingent upon approval by our state local school board or the State Department of Education.
How about or both?
No.
Because you haven't
Okay.
accomplished anything by doing it hard.
Okay, before we have an amendment, before we vote on the amendment, you all have any objection? I know we've got a couple members of the school board and Dr. Zambito here, just to see if they have any comments for council. Y'all got any problems with that?
No.
Okay, any member of the school board or Dr. Zambito, if you'd like to address the council on this issue, please come forward.
Mr. Vinsky, who is our researcher, has done some research on charter schools, and so let me let him speak to the
Sure.
research he's got. He's got some information for you. I've met with many of you.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly willing to answer
Thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about research. Charter school movement has been around since the 1990s when it became popular. As of 2009, there are over 5,000 charter schools in the United States. What that has done is given us enough time to do research and look at the outcomes, particularly student achievement, and are we going to meet or exceed the mandates of No Child Left Behind. The research says, and here's where I need to step back and give you a preface, there's lots of different kinds of research. There's the poor quality research, where people simply look at data and use what we call in vernacular an interocular analysis. They eyeball the data and go, yeah, it looks like that. That's poor quality research. There's excellent quality research, and then there's the gold standard. The gold standard of research is treatment versus control, traditional school versus charter school, before picture, after picture, and most importantly, a random assignment of students to traditional versus control schools, or charter schools. This came out in June. The U.S. Department of Education Institute for Education Science maintains the gold standard. Let me tell you what they say. They looked at charter schools in 15 states. There's no significant difference between charter schools and traditional schools. There is significant difference between the schools because some are following certain patterns, some of them are not. But those are the significant differences. Parents and students are happier at treatment like charter schools than at traditional schools. Let me give you a second piece of information. University of Washington, it's the Center for Reinventing Public Education. Been around for 20 years. They've looked at 77 different studies across the United States, ranked them between poor quality and high quality to excellent quality studies. I looked at just very good to excellent quality studies. Approximately half of them, the charter schools, are significantly lower in student achievement than the traditional schools. In approximately half of them, the charter schools are significantly higher than the traditional schools. And there are 3 studies where they're about the same. With charter schools, there's an implementation dip, which means the first year, 2 or 3, sometimes they're lower than the traditional schools because it takes a while to catch up, and then at that point, they're on par with traditional schools. And that's an element of research I think that you need to make this decision about this piece of land. What are the probabilities of a charter school being successful? And that's what the gold standard research said.
Question. With respect to your research, what does it say about African-American youngsters, charter school versus the public school?
They typically tend to look at disadvantaged students, which may or may not include African-American students. And I'll just cite you a finding from the gold standard study that I talked about. Charter schools serving more low-income and low-achieving students had statistically significant positive effects on math scores, while charter schools serving more advantaged students with higher income and higher prior achievement had significantly negative effects on math scores.
Thank you.
Dr. Zambita.
Thank you. And I've talked to many of you. I just have a practical comment. I am absolutely not anti-charter school. I've worked with charter schools before, and some of them have been very positive experiences, and some of them have not. The foundation of charter schools is that they should be able to offer something to students that it is impossible for the public school to offer. And I've shared some of the experiences. I had worked with a Greek immersion elementary school in the Greek Tarpon Springs community, which was very good, but it could not maintain its financial and personnel practices, and so it had to be closed. We had another charter school with which I've worked that was on the campus of a community college, and the students graduated with a high school diploma and an AA. those are the unique kinds of offerings that I believe charter schools were designed to create opportunities for children. The situation with this district is that regardless of whether, and we don't know whether, what this program is going to be like because the group has not finished their application. We've had several conversations and each one has been in a little different direction. So as they finish their application and submit that in October, the board will study that and make a recommendation or make a decision about that, and that'll be our school board's decision. The thing that will happen if it does go into place, and we just all need to be aware of this, I will not be here, but is that the monies to support this effort, even if it's the best effort in the world, will come directly from our school system. So if there are 100 students or 200 students in that program, they may get the very best education in the world. We'd have no idea because we haven't seen the application. It's not complete. But what we know for sure, that we don't know, but we know for sure that it'll pull from $750,000 to possibly $1 million from our current budget. And I will tell you that we've been working, you know the economic times we're in, and we have worked very hard to try to get to zero-based budgeting, and we're about there, and there's no way that will not negatively impact the students that are left in the system. And that has nothing to do with the value of the program. It has nothing to do with whether charter schools are good or bad. That's the size of our district. It's easier for a district like Memphis or Nashville to afford charter schools.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am. In regards to, their application, the policy of the school board, I think the question has to do more with, does the land actually have to be in the hands of the body itself before they're given approval or any recommendation?
The application would certainly require that they indicate where they will have the school. So if there's an intent or something, that if the board approves that application, that they would have land on which to build, I would think that would be positively seen. That would not be, it doesn't have to be in their hands, in their possession probably, but there has to be a strong commitment.
Let me ask, is it mandatory that they
Not
have?
that I'm aware of. I don't remember that being part of our application.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I haven't read the application in a month or so, but I don't remember that being part of it.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Our sole purpose as a council is on the land issue, not the monetary, budgetary item that you're talking about. We're talking
I
about whether or
understand
not we're gonna deed the land or not. And I think the question's on the floor. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call for the question.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second
Thank you.
for an amendment. Everybody understand the amendment? We're going to vote on the amendment and then vote on the resolution as amended.
Can you?
What was the amendment again?
Madam Secretary, can you read the
The
amendment, please?
amendment was that the land offered to the Connection Preparatory School be used solely for the intent of building the school, and if not, it will revert back to the city.
And I have another amendment that would make it contingent upon approval of the local school board or the State Department of Education.
Okay, let's take each of those amendments separately, if you mind. We have a motion on the amendment, First Amendment, on the reversionary clause, and second. We'll vote on that amendment, then we'll vote on the second one. Council okay with that? Any questions? Council, please vote on the amendment. Amendment number 1.
And that amendment passes with 7 in favor and 2 abstaining.
Okay, your second amendment, Councilman Brooks, would you give that so the Madam Secretary can get it done?
That the land would revert contingent upon approval of the local school board, well, first approval of the Community Redevelopment Agency, the local school board, or the State Department of Education.
Okay, everyone understand the amendment? And I assume that's a motion on that amendment. Is there a second? Amendment dies for lack of a second. Okay, we're back to the resolution as amended for the First Amendment. Any question? Okay, we're voting on the resolution as amended. Council, please vote.
And that motion passes with 5 in favor and 4 against.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Item number 2, under new business, is presentation of the Charter Review Committee recommendations. Mr. West, if you would come up and make those results of that study available to the council. You may introduce some of your committee members that are here. I see one.
Good morning. I appreciate you offering me to do that. That was what I was going to start out with. I do want to take a minute to acknowledge a few folks, and the rest of the Charter Review Committee is part of that. I'm Sammy West. I was the chair of the Charter Review Committee. Ray Washington served as vice chair. Gary Grisham, Steve Little, Dr. Joe Mays, Steve Raper, Darlette Samuels, Warner Turner, and Dr. Melvin Wright made up the rest of that committee. And also want to thank numerous department heads, city staff, other officials who provided much-needed insight into the workings of our city government. And while it's probably not fair, I do want to mention 2 specifically. One is Anita Brooks, who served as our secretary and did a fine job. Thank you. And the other is Attorney Lewis Cobb, who let us know when we were overstepping our bounds and going against state statute and things like that. So thank you, Attorney. Both of those members were with us the whole time, and we thank y'all for y'all's efforts. Also, Mayor, do you want me to go through all of these? Is that what we're doing now?
What's the preference of the council? I think obviously we need to, best thing to do, you all have had copies of this and been involved in some of their discussion. If there are any questions on any particular one that we need to be clarified, then we can do that. I would submit, and Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, at our next meeting, we need to go ahead and approve a resolution to go to the General Assembly before they get out of session, if that's possible, then get it back and ratify it after that comes back. So I'll handle it any way the council would like to. They had 30-some-odd recommendations, so if you'd like to pick out any questions on any particular one, address it that way, that may be the best way to do it.
I did.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions about a couple of issues.
Okay, sure.
Anybody else?
Oh, I've got one question, I guess.
Okay, go ahead, Sergeant. Councilman Uday.
No, I could go on down. I'll let Randy ask the one, and I'll go through my several.
Okay.
He yields to you, Councilman Long.
In the section 3, where you talk about elections, you're saying that you would rather, instead of saying the next scheduled general election, to be the next scheduled municipal election?
Correct.
What's the rationale behind that? It looks like there may be a general election quicker than a municipal election. Or is it difficult to get a municipal candidate on a general election?
That was the primary reason for it, is just the timing and the logistics of having an election. And I think even in this last election, we had a person who was elected just a month ago and now, or a year ago, and now are having to run again. And we saw that as an issue of just logistics of having to run for 2 elections immediately after the other.
Okay, because you're saying because the general election could come up quickly, and then the next municipal election could be 6 months later.
Yes.
And they would have to run for the general and then come back around and turn and run again?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
I guess my question, it follows along his and the same, we'll talk about the same issue in regards to general versus municipal. I went through both as well. I don't necessarily see it as a handicap, though. I do see it as the previous council member was appointed. And so what you're suggesting is an appointment which could take place anywhere within a 4-year period of time.
Correct.
And that appointment would last for anywhere from that period of time, from 0 days to 4 years.
4 years, correct.
As opposed to a general election where the public actually has an opportunity to select their representative. I think that's kind of, okay. Your election, I guess the main purpose was just what?
I'm sorry?
What was the main purpose of the council when the body, when you were deciding that particular issue? Go back to the question again. Do you think that that was, I mean, of course you voted on it, I guess it's supposed to. I guess it's, I mean, what was, actually, I'm still trying to melander what was going through your minds when you were thinking about that. And I guess it's just the, what? Just the distance and time that it would allow a particular person to serve?
It was not necessarily to say that somebody needed to serve, 3 years instead of 1. It was just mainly the logistics. We did have the voting registration folks
Right.
there and setting up the election and those kind of things were just more work for them, a lot of time and effort and money to have those put onto the election. So, I mean, that was the main reason, just, and like I said, because we just ran into one where somebody was just appointed, had to, or got elected in an election, then has to run again after just winning one race, now they've got to run again.
Yeah, I guess on that point, though, I wonder if we shouldn't have some kind of a time frame in there, because if we have somebody that's freshly elected, and then 2 or 3 months after they start serving their term, they vacate their position for whatever reason, and then you do have somebody that maybe is going to be 3.5, pushing 4 years, an appointed position, as opposed to somebody elected from the district then, so.
Right.
But that's something I guess we as a council could discuss, or.
And we did as well. That was part of the conversations of, as Mr. Newdecker was pointing out, you could have somebody who's appointed for several years, or you could have somebody appointed for a few days, or a few months, I think, is what we're dealing with now. So we felt like this was the proper way to handle that. As with any of these, y'all are welcome to give us different direction, and we can go back and take a look at it and either decide, yeah, y'all are right, or no. We still feel this way. It's y'all's decision, though.
I agree with you, because any city election added on to a general election is an add-on. It's not a part of what the city is, and its representation of mayor and council. So
Correct.
I agree with you that it ought to be in a municipal election.
Do I have another question? Yes, I do. There were a couple of questions in regards to pay, and this goes back to both the mayor, the council, and I believe it's the court itself, the judge itself, and,
Correct.
and the city clerk. I believe it's city court clerk, in regards to how those payments, how those decisions are made. And part of that was, I was curious that we're tying one to the county, and then we're trying to untie the other group.
Yes.
So I wonder, what was the discussion on that one?
They were all separate issues, and I guess that's part of the reason that there might be a little bit of an issue with that. But we looked at the court positions as being very similar to what is done in the county court systems as well. So tying those two together kind of made sense in the fact that they do similar jobs, have similar tasks, whereas the council and the county commission are not exactly the same. The duties are different, the amount of work that y'all do and the number of people involved is different. And the county mayor and the city mayor are completely different animals, so to speak. Sorry, Mayor.
It's okay. I've been called worse.
It's just totally different task, and attaching the same pay scale to something that's a different job doesn't make sense, or we didn't feel made sense.
Okay, well, that's fine. One of the things that I was a little bit worried about was that you actually were suggesting a body that included us,
Yes.
which worries me a little.
Well, and the reason behind that is because whatever decision is made has to come back and y'all vote on it. And kind of like Attorney Cobb did for us, that those appointments could say, you know, that's never going to be approved, or maybe you want to look at something else instead. So that was the reason, and we had numerous conversations, several meetings about how to word that, and this is what we finally came up with. There was numerous other suggestions that are just as valid, but this is what we ended up with.
There's one particular clause in regards to the city judge that I was concerned about or questioned, because I haven't read the county's position on this. It talks about salary plus cost of living adjustment.
Yes.
And is that part of the county's as well?
I believe that it
Yes,
is.
yeah,
It is, I believe that's part of
Is
the
that-
state
It is.
statute.
Is that state statute?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering. You think it is?
That's what I remember.
I think it is. I'll look and tell you for sure. What
I know.
It is.
It is. I'm pretty sure that it is. I know that was part of the conversation.
That was just a question. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Questions, if I could.
Councilman Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, I wanted to know kind of the rationale, and these are items that were discussed, but no changes were recommended. What was kind of some of the thought process behind changing the requirement for the council approval of invoices over 10,000?
Mainly because that's the way it's been for so many years. We decided not to change it, and
That gets us in trouble sometimes.
I'm sure that it does, and that was part of the conversation. I believe that was a recommendation by the accountants.
Okay.
And we did look at it in depth.
Did you discuss
but just
raising that ceiling, or what was it?
a lot of the conversation was trying to figure out whether it was really required or not.
At all?
And once we figured that out, it was, I think, along with the conversations with the accountants, you know, a lot of the councilmen liked having that and wanted to see it, so they would continue to do it, although I don't think that it's actually required.
Okay. And secondly, removal of a city council member by vote of the council.
Yes.
Currently, the charter's kind of vague on that.
Right.
What were the conversations relative to that?
Basically, we came down to the fact of, kind of like Frank was alluding to, that the council person had been elected by their constituents, and we didn't feel like the 9 members of this board had the right to take that away from the constituents. There is plenty of ways for the constituency of that council person to recall them, take them out of office through those means, as opposed to 9.
Right. Well, and I don't know, just devil's advocate, in Congress, you can be removed, and other bodies, you can be removed for a certain set of specific
Right.
reasons.
And we
that's
did
just a
talk about
consideration.
it, but again, our recommendation was to leave it
Okay.
as is.
All right, thanks.
One more. Sorry, Randy, I yield.
In the process of doing this, would your recommendation, or your feelings on this be that establishing this committee for future recommendations is a good idea? And also, if we do it on a regular basis, it will become a lot easier for your committee because there'd be, fewer things that needed to be changed?
I think doing it on a somewhat regular basis is probably a good idea. It was very enlightening for me, and I think the rest of the committee as to kind of finding out some of these things that we never knew about was really interesting. I don't think I would do it on a yearly or 4-year basis or something like that, because you will get a number of different ideas each time that this goes through, I would believe, but more than what's it been, forever?
Yeah.
10 years or something like that probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
5 to 10 years? Or
Yeah, I think something along those lines probably wouldn't be bad, because things do change and are, with our society the way it is right now, things change a lot faster than they used to, so.
And I guess to follow up on that, there seemed to be several items that you said we discussed and thought there maybe should be changed, but you didn't get around to. Was that partially because you're kind of burning yourselves out with so much changes you made already that it would be a good thing to do another one sooner, or do you think wait 5 years?
The things that are listed here, we discussed. We just felt like the way that they were in the charter was the proper way for them to be. And the next committee that comes along might look at them in a completely different way and say, no, that really does need to change. Some of the things that y'all have suggested might be more appropriate at that time.
Thank you.
The resolution that was, I think, and I'm thinking is correct, that the resolution that we originally passed, creating the body, is something that we had all agreed that would happen about once every 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Sammy, thank you. Good
Any
work.
other,
Good
any other
work.
questions from council?
Make a motion that we approve the recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second. Any additional discussion? If not, council, please vote.
And the vote passes 8 to 1.
Do want to commend the committee for their hard work. They were very, very diligent, and they worked long hours and debated many, many issues within the charter. So they've done a great job. Ms. West, thank you for chairing
Thank you.
that. Thank you for your recommendations. Attorney, I suppose the next meeting we'll have that in proper form to present to the council officially, or can this vote here be the official adoption? I suppose we need to have it in resolution form to go to the General Assembly.
Question.
Okay.
Would the resolution form have to be individually, or would we do it all as one? That's a question for you.
Here's what I would like to do.
Yes.
I'd like to consult with the legislative lawyers in Nashville so that when we pass it in a form that's acceptable to them.
That's good.
And so I'll work with them and get something we can consider. That way when they get it, they'll have something that they think is appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney
Sure.
Carter, what you're saying, basically what we just done is not a legal vote.
Well, it's not an illegal vote.
But it's not legal.
Here's what I think, is this committee made recommendations, and y'all have accepted their recommendations. It's not the same process as instituting
That's correct.
a private act, which is how the charter's changed. That's what I think happened.
Right.
That's under the
No
impression what we were doing. I
ratification.
thought we were doing. We're voting. We're just approving the recommendations, but not necessarily
Exactly
changing
right.
our charter.
In other words, there's no ratification as of yet.
No.
Right, yeah. The resolution will come back to us for approval.
At the May meeting to be approved, and then it'll be forwarded. We'll try to get a position on the calendar for the legislative delegation to get that through the General Assembly before they adjourn. They'll send it back to us, to be ratified by council, and then it'll be in effect after that ratification. Okay. Okay, everybody good? Item 3 is consideration of a joint resolution opposing legislation adversely affecting Jackson Madison County General Hospital. Council has had this resolution, so we had it last year, we have it again this year. If there are any questions, I know we have representatives here, but rather than making statements, I would simply recommend, if you all have any questions about the resolution, that we have someone here to answer them.
Move we approve the resolution.
We have a motion to approve the resolution, properly second. Any discussion?
Yes. I do have a couple of questions amongst the council, and my concern is, of course, you know, I'm sitting here with the Jackson Madison County General Hospital. It's probably the only location that I would ever attend, but I'm sitting here thinking about the other individuals that aren't able to make some of the choices that are made, that I can make. And my concern is that we might be making, I know that politically we're going to be making, everybody's going to disagree with me on this particular issue, but I think we are moving into what I call dangerous waters, just considering the monopoly that the hospital is using or exercising at this particular time. So.
Any other statement or comments from the council? If not, we have a motion. Okay, go ahead.
I do have one question. I'd like to address it to Mr. Arnold possibly, if I may.
Sure. Mr. Arnold, if you come up.
Mr. Arnold. The brunt of the conversation that we've had from you, I think, and the information you've given us is that the monopoly that the Jackson Madison County General Hospital has over the insurance providers using only Jackson Madison County General Hospital is the fact that your hospital provides a larger amount of indigent care than the other hospital does, and that allows you to be able to do that without falling back on taxpayer dollars. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Councilman Wallace, that concept is correct. Respectfully, I would disagree that we're a monopoly.
Well, okay.
That's a dirty word.
I guess my question to you then is on that indigent care, how much more are you providing, and is regional not required to provide that same amount of indigent care or provide indigent care? I don't understand the difference there, because my understanding was if I go to emergency room, whatever hospital I go to, whether I've got insurance or not, they've got to treat me for whatever I need.
Yes,
What's the difference between two hospitals on that?
Yes, I think you asked a couple of questions there in your comment. There are requirements, it's referred to as EMTALA requirements, that do require all hospitals, regardless of whether you're a not-for-profit or a for-profit hospital in this case, to provide emergent care in the emergency room, but it stops there. And to your other question, I believe, was the comparison of the levels of indigent care. According to the Joint Annual Report for hospitals, which is a required report that has to be filed with the state of Tennessee, 2009 charity care and medically indigent or medical bad debt care measured as a percent of charges at Jackson General was 6.8% of charges. At Regional Hospital, it was 3.4% of charges, twice as high at Jackson General. Charity care, patients that do qualify for a 100% write-off per charity care policies, that percentage at Jackson General was 2.5% of gross charges, 0.9% at Regional.
Okay, so your hospital is providing a considerable amount more of indigent care, charity care than regional is, and to be able to continue to support that, you know, you're feeling that you need these safeguards for the hospital.
Yes.
Can I ask that same question for Mr. Gibb?
Morning, if you would identify yourself for the record, please, sir. We know who you are.
Certainly, thank you. I'm Steve Grubbs. I'm the CEO at Regional Hospital, and Councilman Wallace, thank you for the opportunity to comment on that. I think that if you study charity and indigent care throughout our state, and you look at it hospital by hospital, you're going to see every hospital is different. Is our hospital lower in the amount of charity care that's reported on the joint annual report as a percent of net revenue? As Mr. Arnold suggested, yes, we're lower than their hospital. But if you look at total free care, which is charity care combined with amounts that are uncollectible, we're actually higher as a percent of total. We're at 18.2% in what we call free care versus only 18% at the county hospital. I will also tell you that if you take a look at their hospital, and I think he referenced about a 6% of cash or net revenue number for their charity care, and you compare that to hospitals such as Erlanger or the Med or Vanderbilt, their amount of indigent and charity care is just a fraction of what those hospitals' burdens are. So I think when you look at that picture, yes, their charter, their mission is to provide care regardless of a person's ability to pay, but I think you'll also find that's true for every hospital. We have charity care programs at our hospital. If persons qualify for those programs, we write that care off. Most often what we find is that people are uninsured, maybe have the means to pay, but choose and elect not to pay, probably for good reasons. But that's the reality. You know, the fact that they have exclusive managed care agreements, they do, but they have it for all payers, all the major players, not just one. The only hospital in the state of Tennessee that is true for. Regional Hospital is the only hospital in the state of Tennessee that is excluded from the major plan in all of Tennessee, which is the Blue Cross Preferred Plan. We are the only hospital in the state. And you know, we're talking about hospitals in Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, that are private act hospitals, that are community not-for-profit hospitals, that are faith-based hospitals. They all participate. We're excluded because of this issue.
On those other hospitals you're mentioning, does the city or the county help support those hospitals, taxpayers?
You know, I'm not sure of that. I'm sure you could probably find instances where that is true, you know, depending on the needs of those hospitals. But again, you know, I think that every situation is unique and different, but I think the one thing that's constant is that we're talking about antitrust immunity here, and that should never be compromised, in my opinion. That's just my personal view.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions from?
Can I ask Mr. Arnold that same question about the other hospitals in the state, whether they're paying the city and the county or helping fund them?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brooks.
Thank you. It's my understanding, I'd like to address a couple of points that were made specific to your question, Councilman Wallace. For comparison purposes, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 hospitals here. I'll be happy to go through all of them in the state of Tennessee if you would like. But of these 11 hospitals that we looked at, there are only 2 hospitals in the state of Tennessee who have a higher percentage of indigent care and bad debt or medically indigent than Jackson General. One would be the Regional Medical Center in Memphis, and the second one would be Erlanger. And both of those institutions do receive tax support, which we do not receive. I'd also like to point out that Mr. Grubbs mentioned that some write-off as a percentage of collections of net revenue was a higher percentage. The reason for that, if I understand it correctly, would be that Regional Hospital of Jackson, their charges are twice as high as charges at Jackson General. Therefore, when the bill is written down to collections, you are writing off more, but you're writing off more because your charges are higher. And there were some comments about exclusive contracts. What we have is a preferred position in a PPO contract, which by design allows out-of-network patient choice. It's been suggested there's not choice, and I would just like to clarify that a little bit in that over 60% of the patients at both hospitals are Medicare and TennCare patients for which there's 100% patient choice. The commercial book of business at Regional Hospital in Jackson in 2009 was 24% of the total. At Jackson General, it was 33% of the total. Certainly not indicative of a monopoly or a lack of choice. And when our numbers are adjusted for our 5,500 employees and their families and for services that aren't provided at regional, our adjusted commercial book of business is 26.5%, and regionals was 24. One final point, Regional Hospital of Jackson actually had, not in the contract, as Mr. Grubb described, actually has a higher commercial percentage of business than the average of their other 6 hospitals in rural West Tennessee that are in the contract.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Discussion, none. Council, please vote.
And the vote passes with 7 in favor and 2 abstaining.
Item 4 is consideration of a resolution to authorize the city of Jackson to purchase a building located at 447 East Main Street, formerly known as the Bell South Building, for a police annex. We have the chief here, and also Al can hopefully answer any questions the council may have on this item.
I move the approval.
We have a motion for approval, and second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Thank you. How you doing, Chief?
Fine, thank you.
In a discussion that we've been having over the last week, we were talking about some of the advantages and disadvantages of the purchase of the property. And this is a long history, and we talked about that as well. So my only real question is the fact that, well, I have 2 questions in regards to this particular. One is there an estimate in regards to utilities?
I'm not aware of an estimate at this time as far as utilities are concerned,
Would
unless,
you assume that
Mr.
it would
Flynn
be
can
up?
do something.
Oh,
I think we talked about
Yeah.
$1,100.
So $50,000 to $60,000 annually. Okay. Question. That was. And the second question I had to do with the number of vehicles that we're going to need to park within that area.
There's probably going to be approximately 60 people that will actually be working at this facility, so.
Are they shifting?
Yes, they are shifting.
So you'll have how many at any particular time?
Maybe 25 to 30 at any particular time, but that's not very much static because these particular divisions themselves are very active divisions, so therefore we're not static at a location very long.
So what was your recommendation as far as the minimum number of parking spaces?
We presently have 32 as far as this particular place is concerned itself, but I understand from speaking to Mr. Dawson this morning, there are 3 other locations that are presently now in negotiations as far as being able to literally expand that space out.
Should we bring those discussions up, Al?
I don't think it would be to our advantage to, because we're in the process of negotiating.
Yes.
But there are 3 options versus the 2 that we previously had, so.
2 of those options are leasing.
Right.
And those are where?
Well, the John Allen parking lot, if we have to.
Because I'm going to bring them up.
Well, then you might as well go ahead.
I think it was where the Cumberland Church, is that correct? Is one?
It's where the previous St. Mary's Church was.
St. Mary's Church.
Across the street on Main.
And then there's another lot that's 2 steps away from us, or 2 lots away from the building.
Right.
That's owned by?
It's owned by McKelvey's, the Mac Pest
Okay.
Control people.
No, that's another one. That's okay. But those properties have to be leased, though. Is that correct?
Oh, the John Allen property. would
Yes.
have to be leased.
They would have to be leased, and the estimated lease is, never mind. That's more than I want to talk about. All right. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from Councilman Wallace?
The property we're looking at purchasing, did we get more than one appraisal on that, or just one appraisal?
We have a tax appraisal, and which was in line with, in fact, it was much higher.
Okay, and I thought we got an appraisal from a commercial appraisal also on that land.
Right.
Okay, and it appraised for more than what we're paying for it? Okay.
Is it, I'm sorry, may I ask? Sure.
Yes.
Is it not true that we have had several appraisals have been made on that property, that all the appraisals are more than what we're going to pay for it?
Yes, definitely.
Not to let that number out.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have removed item 5 from the agenda. We'll go on to item 6, consideration of a resolution approving the substantial amendment. Number 1, to the annual action plan, 2010-2011.
Move the adoption.
We have a
Second.
motion to adopt and a second. Discussion?
Wait a minute. What is the what are we amending? Exactly, the substantial
Do you-
amendment.
Did council get a copy of that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Dave, would you like to
Thank you.
come up and tell the councilman what's in the packet? Good morning, Dave.
The amendment is on the, there's a substantial amendment which we have to go through whenever we reprogram community development dollars that have not been spent. I went back all the way to 2000. I could have gone back to 91, but I didn't feel like that was appropriate, and I actually identified close to $525,000 that needs to be reprogrammed. And primarily it will be coming from, we've only paid interest last year and then this next year on the 108 loan. And so that's the bulk of the dollars. And any projects that are really older than 5 years, we need to go back and get those revised. I've identified several that just need to be closed out permanently. And there is still about $157,000 difference in our favor based on two ways to determine this. I take the letter of credit from HUD and I identify active projects and deduct those as to where they are at a certain point in time. That is in our favor. And then the other one is looking at every individual project. There are some negative balances that you have to calculate as well. And so it was primarily about $494,000.
Part of the resolution, may I ask? Part of the resolution is reprogramming $400,000 for the renovation of RIFA,
Yes, sir.
and that's the new facility that they're going to go to,
Yes.
and that's located on Airways?
Pardon?
That's located on Airways, is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct? Okay. Thank you. That's
I have
what I
a
wanted.
question, if I may, very quickly.
Sure.
Those would be used for renovations as well, renovations of the facility?
The new facility.
Right.
There are actually two buildings there.
Okay.
The old Nando Jones building.
Right.
And the former music store.
Them as well? Okay.
That's right next door. And it has all the existing type of facilities they need, the loading dock and so forth,
And
to handle all their functions.
will any of those funds go to programming for homeless issues?
No, this is an actual community facilities.
Okay, so all the money will go for
So
renovation?
yeah, the renovation is community facilities eligible.
Okay.
When I go into operations and I get into public services and we're capped, and these dollars that we were reprogramming, we've already had our dollars calculated on each of those years, so there's not any public service dollars there.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council, please vote.
The motion passes 8 in favor and 1 abstaining.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Dave. Just item 7 is just to let the council's information. We had some new appointments to some boards and commissions which have been made. Self aware of that, and again, I appreciate you gentlemen willing to serve in some of you in new positions. Item 8, we have a presentation.
I'm sorry. Mayor?
Yes.
Just so that Mr. Moore's position has to be voted on by resolution. It's just a technicality. It does have to be voted on. It was in the original resolutions, when we created the CRA, that recommendation be, you know.
That is a CRA
Yeah.
recommend, okay, all right.
No, it's a city, it's part of the development of CRA. We had all agreed that.
Okay, we have Mr. Moore slated to serve on the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Yes.
And that'll be the only one that would need council approval, so I submit Mr. Moore's name to serve on that agency. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion, second. Council, please vote. Thank you, Councilman Udecker.
And the motion passes with 8 in favor and 1 abstaining.
Okay, item 8 is have an organization, Tennessee Equity Equality Project. Drew Breakers asked to be on the agenda. Mr. Baker here. In addition, let me indicate that Mrs. Trice was here at the last meeting and did not have a slot on the agenda. After the meeting, she indicated to me that she called the office, talked to one of the office assistants, and they indicated that she would be inserted on the agenda. Obviously, we like to have those requests. We're more than happy to accommodate any group that wishes to address this council. We prefer to have those requests in writing to where we can properly insert it on the agenda. I've indicated to Ms. Trice, who is also here today, that if council did not have any objection, if there is an objection, we'll try it again next month through a written request from her. If there's no objection, we'll go ahead and hear her after Mr. Baker. Council okay with that? Okay. Ms. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Gist and council members, good morning. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here this morning speaking to you not only as the Madison County Committee Chairman for the Tennessee Equality Project, but also as a citizen and business owner in District 5. While the Tennessee Equality Project is a group focused primarily on LGBT issues, that focus is part of a much larger belief that every human being is entitled to the same dignity and respect, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. While the First Amendment affords every American the right to speak his or her mind, elected officials, I believe, must be held to a higher standard. The First Amendment, in my opinion, is a temple, not an amusement park. Having said that, I want to express how deeply offended I am, as is my group and a lot of other citizens, at the recent postings on Councilman Frank Newdecker's personal web blog. On February the 22nd, Frank Talk featured a piece entitled, "Rolling on the Floor Laughing My Blank Off." In this piece, the First Lady of the United States was characterized as ugly, ill-mannered, and inbred. The assertion was made that white people are being destroyed daily and that the KKK and the Aryan Nation are the only people left to fight for being white. LGBT individuals were referred to as freaks. The piece goes on to suggest that tolerant and anti-racist leaders should stay out in the sun a lot more to make the white of their skin less noticeable. We're also reminded to talk the language of the hood. Councilman Newdecker has defended his posting by saying that everyone is entitled to free speech and that he scans each article to make sure nothing is blatantly incorrect or distasteful. He told me personally in an email that he had no intention of removing this piece from his site. While I acknowledge that Councilman Newdecker was not the author of this particular post, he, by his own admission, scanned it for incorrect or distasteful content. The disclaimer on his blog clearly states, as of March 3rd, 2011, the views and opinions expressed on this blog are purely the blog owners. Yet this particular post is still there for all to read. In closing, I ask you today to examine the content of his blog and to determine for yourselves what is either correct and or tasteful about it. In the opinion of this citizen, such hate speech and the passive endorsement of such is far beneath the office that Councilman Newdecker was elected to hold. I want to thank you for your time, your attention, your service to our city, and for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Ms. Trice, you're next. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And hello to you today, Mr. Mayor and city council members. I'm here because first I want to read something out of the charter book. This is your charter book that y'all are supposed to abide by, right? Right? Okay. It says here the powers and the duty of the mayor. The mayor of the city of Jackson shall be the full-time chief executive officer of the city of Jackson, and all executive and administrative power and responsibility of the city of Jackson shall be vested in the mayor. It is to prohibit and regulate all acts, conducts, morals, comforts, safeties, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city, to declare certain acts unlawful and provide punishment thereof. And I have with me today a petition signed by people of Jackson, Tennessee, and the petition reads, "We, the undersigned citizens of Jackson, Tennessee, are outraged. We deplore the hate-filled and racist comments that City Councilman Frank Newdecker, District 5, wrote and/or permitted to be posted on his blog February the 22nd of 2011. We, the undersigned, demand that Councilman Newdecker remove the blog, apologize to the City of Jackson, and resign immediately as councilman of District 5, and not to seek this position in the May election." Now, also, I have not heard either one of you council members speak out, or the mayor, deploring the fact that this man allowed this stuff to be put on his blog. I've not heard either one of y'all say how you feel about it and how this is affecting this city. Y'all have a responsibility. Mr. Mayor, you have a responsibility to this entire city to make sure that every man, woman, boy, and girl is treated fair. And we got 9 council members and a mayor sitting up here making decisions regarding this city and the people in this city, and y'all gonna allow something like this to happen? Not any one of you have said anything. I'm appalled. I want to know why y'all haven't said anything, and if you don't say nothing, then I'm going to be inclined to agree that you agree with this. If you don't say something, if you don't right now, before me, tell me why I shouldn't feel that y'all feel just like Frank Newdecker, and I got his blog right here for y'all to read, and y'all need to read it. And I want you to tell me, do you feel like this man feel? And how is this helping our city? How is this growing our industry? Where is this getting us since Mr. Newdecker allowed this to be posted? I want to know what great significant thing has happened in our city since he allowed it to happen. And I want to know today, based upon y'all's actions, what do you think is coming next? If Mr. Newdecker is allowed to say and stand behind and promote these things, what are y'all gonna do next? What's gonna be the next person that step forward full of racism and hate and just crazy stuff? Are we gonna be permitting this kind of thing? Are we gonna just sit here and allow this man to get away with this? And then my next question to you is, what are you gonna allow to happen next? This man sitting on up here in this chair right beside y'all. Is this how y'all feel? Like Mr. Newdecker feel? Because if it is, you need to let every citizen in this city of Jackson know so we can make a formal decision as to if we want to keep y'all any longer.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Councilman.
Ms. Trice.
Yes?
Are you saying that each council member should make a public statement, or are you asking that we condemn Councilman Newdecker acts? This is my first time hearing all this. I haven't been here. So let me go back first. With respect to the city charter, the mayor does not have the authority to oust a council member. It would be a recall by the people who elected him in that particular district. Okay, that's District 5. The mayor does not have authority to oust a council member. No, we don't have. It'd be the voters in District 5 on a recall, and that's in the charter too. Now, with respect to what you're saying that Councilor Newt Decker had posted on his web, I had a chance to read it. No, I don't agree with it, but no one has asked me anything about it, nor the media or anything. But let me say this to you. Time reveals much things, and to voice your opinion, we appreciate that. But just give it time and see what's happening. No, I don't agree with it. Strongly opposed to it. But it's an election in 2 months, honey. Next month, so don't worry about it. It's gonna be all right.
Well, and no, I don't expect for the mayor to fire Mr. Newt Decker, though I wish he had the power to do it. But it is the duty of the mayor to maintain peace and harmony in this city. And regardless to what you say, y'all can sit up there and y'all can play with words and the law all you want to. The fact of the matter is this man made some and stand behind it. And he's sitting over there rolling on the floor laughing his butt off right now. The fact of the matter is this man stand behind this racist stuff. No, we don't need to wait. Wait broke the bridge down. And if you allow this mess to go viral, it's just like cancer, it'll kill. It is a killer. It is something we don't need. We all know racism live. It's alive and well right there on the council beside you. We don't need to wait to know May. He need to go now.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Ms. Try. Next item is board appointments. We have one appointment to the Vicious Dog Commission, the appointment of Kim Lewis.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to
Second.
approve, second. Discussion, council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Before we get to item 10, let me just announce to the council that we have 90 days from the date that we received our census numbers. We're pleased to see that our city has continued to grow at about 9.3%, which is good, steady growth, as reflected in the state census. But by virtue of receiving those numbers, we're now obligated within 90 days to adopt a redistricting plan for the city. The planning department has those numbers, the census numbers and the district populations, and they have ready for council to come by the office at your convenience to assess that plan and to offer any recommendations to the planning staff that you would like to make. So let me urge you, in order for us to meet our 90-day window, which is offered to us by the charter, that we'll need to have first reading on that redistricting plan next month, and then second reading and final adoption in June. So if there's another way which council would like to orchestrate that, I'd be happy to let you all discuss it. But the plan is, a proposed plan is available for you all to go by and take a look at in the planning department. Okay?
I think we should change our charter and give ourselves more time.
Okay, item 10 is consideration of budget amendments.
So,
Val?
wait a minute. We need to get.
Okay, we have several budget amendments today. We'll start with the first one, which is a police department is receiving funds from EMA for the purchase of a canine dog and for training with this unit in the amount of $25,000. In addition, the police department is receiving funds from EMA for an Avid video system in the amount of $25,000. This will be 100% reimbursed by EMA. Second part of that same budget amendment is the fire department has had an engine to go out in a fire truck, and the cost of repairs is $16,000. They're requesting to move $16,000 from their capital funds as they will not purchase the scuba equipment originally budgeted, and will use this $16,000 to cover the repairs expense in their operating budget.
Is there a motion for approval? Let's get a motion. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I just have a quick question, Mayor. Can a dog cost $25,000?
I could not tell you that, but Barry Michaels is here, and I'm sure Chief Michaels will be glad to address the dog.
That's fine. I'm kind of joking.
I will tell you that the bulletproof vest for the dog costs more than the officers.
I want to meet the dog,
and-
Mr. Michaels,
and the-
when you get him.
And the training is more for the dog than the officers. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council, please vote on that amendment.
And the motion passes unanimously.
I didn't think we'd have anybody that would vote against a dog, and we didn't.
Right, the second amendment that we have is also in relation to the Jackson Police Department. They've received a grant in the amount of $39,852.15 for a crash reduction enforcement for the state of Tennessee. This grant will be used to cover overtime and benefits for employees working in this enforcement program. And this is the crash reduction enforcement program.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, second. Discussion. Council, please vote.
The vote is unanimous.
The third amendment that we have today is a budget amendment requested to move funds in the IDB appropriation and transfer from fund balance, and this is the amount of $69,244. Mr. Laffoon will answer any questions that you have about that.
Move the approval.
Have them approval.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Council, please vote.
The vote is unanimous.
The last amendment that we have today goes in conjunction with the resolution that you approved on purchasing the building. Jackson Police Department purchased the old Bell South building located at 447 East Main Street for the purpose of utilizing as a police annex. This funding will be used for the purchase and renovations to the facility in the amount of $475,000.
Is there a motion? I have a motion and second. Discussion. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Final item is item 11, consideration of invoices over $10,000.
So moved.
Have a motion. We have a second. Have a second. Discussion. Council, please vote.
And the motion passes with, 7 in favor, 2 against.
Now we skip it. Appointment.
Now, we did that. We did that.
Item.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it.
We did.
Okay, what item are you talking about there, Tommy?
We did? Okay, we did.
Item 9, board appointments, yeah? We handled that, did we not?
We voted for.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
He was asleep.